Well, hi guys, welcome back to Linda's Pantry. And today, I am going to be making pasta with farm fresh eggs. So homemade pasta, and it's going to be a beef and noodle dish, and it's going to be wonderful. So I'm going to bring you along. The pasta is the main story here. You can do this several different ways, but I'm going to show you how I'm doing it. Okay, so super simple. We're going to try to do this the old-fashioned way here. You can do this in a food processor if you have one. I do not have one. And so I'm going to do 2 cups of flour right here. And I'm going to make a little well in the center there. I did take my rings off. And I'm going to get a bowl because I want to separate the eggs. So we have plenty of yolk. Sorry about that. I wasn't quite ready. So we'll get these separated. This is a big one. I'll probably use the whole egg on that. And then the yolks out of these two. Go ahead and separate the eggs. There we go. Actually, and I'm not going to waste the whites of these eggs. So if you're worried, you want to get that little membrane. So get that yolk right in there. And this one, we'll put the whole egg. Sorry, should have done it that way in the first place. And then we'll capture that yolk with one of these eggs and go in here and just go ahead and capture that yolk just like that. Okay. And then these I can use for something else. Okay. Now, let me get my hands wiped off here real quick. This is very fun because it's a tactile experience. You get to actually get your hands in the food. And I want some salt in here. I use a fine salt. If you don't salt the pasta a little bit, you're going to end up with a really bland pasta. So let's get a fork and break those yolks up and start folding this together. Keeping in mind, it's all going to end up mixed up. And like I said, in a food processor, you just bring it until the dough comes together and then get it out here on your board. But we're doing it the way the Italian grandmas did. And so, okay, so I have a question for you. If you make pasta at home, do you do it this way? Do you do it in a food processor? How do you do it? And let everybody in the comments know. Now, if you need a little bit of water, which I'm going to need a little bit of filtered water. I don't use tap water. I want to make sure I'm using filtered water. Just get in here and start mixing this up. Beautiful. Starts feeling like it's coming together. And again, I can gather with this scraper even the water portion. And you'll start feeling it hold together. It's not quite there yet. So we're going to continue this. If you end up adding too much water, guess what? We have more flour right there. And maybe, because you never can tell what the moisture of the yolks are going to be or the eggs themselves, you could actually incorporate another egg in there. And I might do that because I feel like the color's not quite right. And it's still a little dry, so let's add another egg. And get that excess off your hands. It's pretty easy. Roll them together. Okay, let me go get an egg. Okay, we got one more egg. That should be plenty of liquid. And I'd rather have egg liquid than water because it makes the egg pasta so much better. So, absolutely wonderful. And those fresh eggs, it's irresistible to me not to make pasta when you have beautiful eggs like this. And I could make that and okay, now I'm going to need a little bit more flour. Not a problem though. Just a little bit at a time. Start bringing it together. And you're kneading a little bit, not to necessarily develop glutens, but just to really get the dough at a soft, pliable consistency that will be pretty strong. You'd be surprised how much it can hold together. Clean your hands off a little bit. And obviously starting with clean hands. When your dough comes together in a ball like it's doing, you have got enough moisture in there. It takes it a minute for it to absorb everything, so keep working the dough a little bit. And it'll all come together. All right, I'm going to continue right now. A little bit of flour, just enough to work the dough. And then we're going to put this in a ball, wrap it up in saran wrap. You can cut this recipe in half. I would use 2 eggs per cup for sure of flour and about a teaspoon of salt. So we did. Okay, scrape your board and clean up. This part can go somewhere else. There we go. Oh, beautiful. And literally you start feeling it just stick to itself. It's getting to that really smooth dough. And for pennies, you're going to have a ton of pasta. Who doesn't like that? Especially in today's economy. Okay. I think it's ready to wrap up. I am going to go ahead and cut this in half when I unwrap it, so it'll make it easier for me to work with. But this is beautiful. I'm going to let this rest at room temperature. You don't want to refrigerate it, but let it rest on the counter. And it pops back when you put a little indent in there. So that tells me that I've worked enough of it. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up and I'll be back in a half hour. Okay, so I've got my dough here that is rested. Perfect. And I'm just going to cut off a piece. So you're going to take your dough and dip my, there we go. It's beautiful dough. Oh, I'm super excited. There's nothing better than homemade pasta. I'm just going to say right now. So I'm going to get a couple of pieces here and get some flour on them. Get your rolling pin out and literally you can, all right, so I've got my dough and I've cut it a couple of pieces here. I'm hoping you guys can see okay. I've got my pasta roller over here, so I'll bring it over when I've got it. I'm just going to take and get a little bit of shape to it and get out of this dough. Wrap the remaining dough up so it doesn't dry out. There we go. And we'll get this. It's great if you can get it into a rectangular shape. But if you can't, hey, whatever you got. And we'll get that working. So I'm going to put it through the pasta roller. You don't have to. You can literally do this right here on the cutting board if that's what you wanted to do. So we'll get this kind of in a square to rectangular shape. It'll end up okay. All right. Get this piece rolled out as well. There we go. And this dough is rested enough that it's really cooperating. Oh, it's going to be so good. I'm not giving you the whole recipe for the beef tips or beef and noodles, but I am going to show you a couple of techniques. So, and homemade pasta, right? I haven't done this for you in a bazillion. Okay. You're just going to continue to roll and stretch and get it as thin as you want it. It's pretty easy to roll once you've let it rest for that time frame. And this would be great for lasagna. And as you can see, the dough has it's got some strength to it. It doesn't just break apart. You're actually dealing with a pretty resilient dough. So here we go. And then this one, because I've got it stretched out there pretty thin, we're just going to cut that with a possibly, no pizza wheel. Oh, so we'll just cut it with a knife. Easy peasy when I find a knife. There we go. Okay. So you just cut depending on how thick you want your noodles. And these are going to cook really nicely. It's super, super thin, right? And just have a lot of flour sitting there so it really, you can actually, the easiest way to cut this is to roll this up. Put some flour, right? And we're just going to roll it up. And flour along the way. Just like that. And then you can cut long ribbons. And that's so if you don't have a pasta roller, this is it, right? Done deal. And if you have some misshapen pieces, it doesn't really matter. I don't want to cut into my mat, so use very little pressure when doing that. That's perfect noodle. And pull them apart. Make sure they're well floured so they don't stick or start coming undone on you. So it's like a pappardelle pasta, perfect 6-8 inches. Super easy and delicious. And then I'll get to the pasta rolling, which is just as easy. We'll have to figure out which one's easier, right? Oh, I guess I could put you into view here. Okay, and there's that. Let's get right into the and depending on the width that you do, that's totally preference. You can do like a linguine. You could run it through and make spaghetti if you wanted, or however you wanted this. It's totally up to you, but I've sauteed the mushrooms off with a shallot and some garlic, and I'll be ready to sear the beef here in a minute as soon as I get my pasta ready to get in the pasta water. which you want a well salted water, and so it doesn't stick, and it takes minutes. So you really need your everything done, ready to go. So we're going to continue doing this, and I do have a big batch of meat, and I tenderize my meat. I cut it into bite-sized pieces, whatever bite-sized pieces you want. I'm not going to slow cook this like beef tips, but I velvet the meat with some cornstarch, just cut it up and toss it in that, and it's sitting in the fridge, so it'll be nice and tender. And this is a top sirloin, so it's going to be delicious. Okay, here we go. That's probably one serving right there. So you can see how cost effective this is to have. Okay, this piece is going into the pasta roller. So I've got it all hooked up to my cutting board. And you have numbers from 1 to 9. And I'm just going to roll this through the roller at a number 1 and get it incorporated. And then I just, as the dough tells me it can take it, we're going to go down to the next level. We'll go to 2. There we go. And roll that out. This is how I make lasagna sheets because, well, who doesn't love lasagna? And down a notch, and so on and so forth. Same thing. And I'll still roll this up and cut it just like I did the last pasta. But I want to get it to that state where it's nice and thin. And if you really like thick pasta, you want a thick pasta, then go for it. You can do it as thick as you want. There is another dough noodle recipe that I do that I add a little bit of baking powder, and it makes the pasta puff up, and you do it a little bit thicker, and it's like a dumpling. It's so delicious. So I really want this. See how resilient that dough is? Okay. I want this at 6 right now. Probably get to a 7. Oh, here we go. Now it gets challenging. When you start seeing a lot of light through the dough, and I feel like this is probably exactly what I need for my pasta. So we're going to set this aside. And there we go. Set that aside. We're going to flour this really good so it doesn't stick again. And here we go. Okay, we'll roll this up and get it cut up, and we'll have long pasta. I don't really need it that long, so I'm going to cut it right now. And we'll roll this one up, and so on and so forth. Now you know how to make pasta. I will show you the finished dish when it's on our plate. And this goes into salted boiling water for 2 to 3 minutes, literally, and it's done. So there you go. We'll be back with some delicious pasta. So the pasta, I cooked the pasta and mixed it in with the beef and the mushrooms, and this is my version of beef tips and pasta. Oof, look at that. Long pasta, tender, like you can't tell the difference between the beef and the mushrooms. That's how tender that beef is. It's divine. So we're going to get us a nice helping. That's probably more than I need for sure. And a little bit of toast, but I'm just going to give you a taste here. I did add some fresh parsley at the end, just so that herb just lets go of all those essential oils. Piece of beef, some pasta, The pasta is the star of the show. Let's showcase that first. How about that? Maybe. Okay, I got some pasta right there. It's very hot. I'm gonna give you a taste test. Divine. It's so good. It's so flavorful. If you want to see me make the beef tips and pasta like this, then because it would have taken hours to make this video. If you'd like to see how I do the beef and the mushrooms, I'll make the pasta ahead of time and we'll do this recipe kind of in reverse. Let me know in the comment section. Yum. Okay. It's dinner time. I got to go. So I highly recommend making your own pasta. This was so delicious.